Hello and welcome to 10 Minutes. Today we will be discussing the interesting life and mysterious death of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Starting off with some background information, the mid-18th century was a period of great transition for Europe. This is a time of the Enlightenment and the Age of Reason. Many people questioned the Church's authority and were seeking out new ideas about science and religion. As the Baroque period came to a close with the death of Johann Bach in 1750, the beginning of the classical era began, which focused on longer and more complex musical compositions.
Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born on January 27, 1756 in Salzburg, Austria. Although Mozart's parents, Leopold and Anna Maria, had many children, only him and one older sister survived to adulthood. It was clear from a very young age that Mozart had a musical gift. Leopold Mozart saw his son's talents and quickly quit his musical pursuits to devote his time to teaching his son. Mozart and his older sister, whom he called Nannerl, were extremely close growing up, and his father paraded them around Europe as child prodigies. Wolfgang was pushed extremely hard by his father at a very young age. There were many times while on the road where the father or one of his children were very sick and had their lives threatened, but the Mozarts were persistent and kept traveling. By his teenage years, Wolfgang was well known around Europe. As a young adult, Mozart worked as an assistant concertmaster in Salzburg, but was not content with his position. A frustrated Mozart quit his job and left to travel Europe, but returned shortly after when his mother died in 1778. Eventually, Mozart found work in Vienna, but he was extremely financially unstable for many years. The young artist went through times of great monetary windfall and then went through times of extreme poverty, a very typical struggle of composers during this time period.
Young money, Lil Wayne in the music trap. I make it snow, I make it flurry, I make it out back to.
As Mozart grew older, his works became increasingly complex. Throughout his career, Mozart composed and performed over 22 operas and constructed over 40 symphonies. One of his most commonly referenced choruses comes from the opera The Marriage of Figaro, written in 1786. Less than a year later, Mozart completed Don Giovanni, an opera based on the fictional character Don Juan and his eventual descent into hell. The Magic Flute, written in 1791, is also an opera based on the familiar fairy tale. Other major works include symphony numbers 34, 40, and 41. scene of one of Mozart's greatest creations, and also his last. The composition of Mozart's Requiem Mass began in 1791. A Requiem Mass, also known as the Mass for the Dead, is traditionally played in a Catholic church during funerals, offered for the rest of the deceased. An anonymous man commissioned Mozart to write the piece. This mysterious man later proved to be Count Franz von Walsegg, who wanted the piece to commemorate the anniversary of his wife's death 1 year earlier. Many historians believe Count Walsegg was planning on taking the piece and publishing it as his own. Unfortunately, the great Mozart left his Mass incomplete when he died on December 5, 1791. Working on 2 pieces simultaneously while suffering from debilitating illness proved too much for the brilliant composer. His work was in fact finished by his student, Franz Xaver Süssmayr, in 1792 and delivered to Count Walsegg.
Wolfgang Mozart died December 5, 1791 at the age of 35. The exact cause of his death still remains a mystery. An autopsy was not performed on his body as this was not yet standard procedure for deaths. There are a few theories on how he could have died. Mozart had many health problems throughout his life, including smallpox and pneumonia. One theory states that Mozart died of rheumatic fever. Another theory is that one of his contemporaries poisoned him out of jealousy. Whatever the truth may be about Mozart's death, it still remains that his death was young and unexpected. Although Mozart was a well-known and respected musician, his death was not widely celebrated. His funeral was not ostentatious, and few people were in attendance. As was custom, Mozart was given a common grave without many markings.
Here lies Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, a great friend and great musician. May he rest in peace.
After Mozart's death, his wife sold some of his unpublished manuscripts to help reduce the large amount of debt left by her deceased husband. She even held some memorial concerts in Mozart's honor. Mozart's short life has left a lasting legacy.
While the mystery of Mozart's death will be debated forever, his legacy and contributions to the music world will be remembered for eternity. His greatness continues to live on today in many ways. Famous movies such as Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, Batman, Grumpy Old Men, A Beautiful Mind, The Incredibles, Jurassic Park, Miss Congeniality, Racing Stripes, Romeo and Juliet in 1996, The Shawshank Redemption, Star Trek in 1998, White Chicks, and The Whole Nine Yards all have pieces of Mozart's music. Scientists have even studied the possibility of enhanced brain activity after people listen to Mozart's music. A psychologist named Don Campbell studied the boosting of the IQ in individuals and found a positive correlation between IQ and listening to Mozart's music. While scientists have had a little trouble validating the accuracy of his studies, it is an undeniable fact that Mozart's music and legacy have cemented him in history as one of the greatest composers of all time. Thank you for watching this documentary on Mozart. This concludes our episode of 10 Minutes for this evening. Good night, everybody.